As a kid, watching a whole platoon of B-1s come out of their transport in TPM was so cool. But you're forgetting the real magic, the tanks and ships that made your jaw drop. Think about it. Really think about it. When you close your eyes and picture the Separatist military, what do you actually see? Sure, maybe there's a B-1 going, "Roger, Roger," somewhere in that mental image. But I bet money the thing you're really picturing, the thing that made 8-year-old you lean forward in your theater seat, isn't a skinny tan droid with noodle arms. It's a tank. It's a capital ship splitting the void. It's something massive and unstoppable rolling toward you. The Confederacy of Independent Systems gets remembered for the wrong things. Fans obsess over Battle Droid variants, B-1 specs, B-2 super battle droids, Droidekas. We've all seen the tier lists, right? The YouTube comments arguing about whether destroyer droids could take a squad of clones in a hallway. And look, that's fine. Those conversations are fun. But they're also missing the entire point. The droids were cannon fodder. That was the design. Expendable infantry meant to absorb casualties and provide mass, while the actual instruments of war did the heavy lifting. The AAT tanks that cracked open defensive lines. The Providence-class destroyers that made Republic admirals sweat. The manned starfighters piloted by Geonosians bred for aerial combat across generations. These vehicles, not the battle droids, were why the Separatist military posed a genuine peer-level threat to the Galactic Republic. And here's the thing nobody talks about. This wasn't an accident. This was Palpatine. But we'll get there. First, let's go back to where it all started. Naboo, 32 BBY, the moment everything changed. The Trade Federation's invasion of Naboo wasn't technically a Clone Wars battle. The Clone Wars wouldn't start for another decade, but it established the military doctrine that would define the entire Separatist war machine. And it gave us our first look at the vehicle that would become the backbone of CIS ground operations. The AAT-1 Armored Assault Tank. Manufactured by Bactoid Armor Workshop, the same corporation that built the B-1 battle droids, the AAT was designed to be the hammer that cracked open planetary defenses. And on paper, the specs are impressive enough. 9.75 meters long, 9.19 meters wide. Repulsor lift propulsion, allowing it to glide across any terrain at speeds exceeding 55 kilometers per hour. A turret-mounted heavy laser cannon capable of penetrating fortified structures. Twin lateral laser cannons for anti-personnel work. A pair of short-range projectile launchers that could saturate an area with explosives in rapid succession. But specs don't capture what it actually felt like to watch those things roll into Theed. Picture it. You're in a theater in 1999. You've just seen a pod race that melted your brain. Darth Maul is lurking somewhere off-screen, being terrifying. And then the invasion begins. Trade Federation forces descend on Naboo, and instead of just waves of skinny droids, you see columns of those curved, menacing tanks gliding through pastoral countryside like something out of a nightmare. The Naboo Volunteer Defense Force, equipped for ceremonial duties and light peacekeeping, can't even slow them down. The tanks just kept coming. 4 battle droids crewed each AAT in specialized roles, a pilot handling navigation, a commander operating the main cannon and coordinating with other units, and 2 gunners controlling the lateral weapons. This meant that while individual droids were still kind of dumb, the tank functioned as a cohesive weapons platform. Each system had a dedicated operator. The whole was dramatically greater than the sum of its parts. And then came the Battle of the Great Grass Plains. The Gungans deployed their Famba-mounted shield generators to create a massive protective energy barrier. That should have worked. That should have neutralized the Trade Federation's ranged advantage entirely. The AATs had been designed for exactly this scenario. Their repulsor lift systems and hardened armor allowed them to push straight through the energy shield. The tanks breached what the Gungans believed was impenetrable, their hulls sparking and crackling as they forced passage through the barrier. And once through, systematic destruction of Gungan artillery positions. The catapult weapons that were the Grand Army's primary heavy armament just ceased to exist. The Gungan infantry, armed with electropoles and plasma ball throwing sticks, couldn't engage armored vehicles at range. They were helpless. Only the destruction of the droid control ship in orbit, which deactivated all Trade Federation droids, including the AAT crews, prevented complete annihilation. Remember that. The Gungans were saved by a lucky shot from a 9-year-old who accidentally flew into the control ship's hangar. Not by superior tactics, not by matching the Trade Federation's military capability, by destroying the off switch. That should tell you everything about how dominant those tanks were. Now let's jump forward a decade. 22 BBY. The Clone Wars begin. The Battle of Geonosis marked the first full deployment of the Separatist combined arms doctrine at scale. Jedi and clone forces assaulted the Geonosian hive factories where Count Dooku and the CIS leadership had gathered. What they faced demonstrated just how far the Separatist vehicle program had evolved. On the ground, AAT tanks worked alongside even heavier weapons platforms. The IG-227 Hailfire-class droid tanks, equipped with twin missile-launching wheels that gave them both rapid mobility and devastating anti-vehicle firepower, proved particularly effective against the LAAT/I gunships ferrying clones to the surface. Each Hailfire carried 30 high-explosive missiles capable of tracking and destroying individual aircraft. 30 missiles per platform, and those platforms moved fast enough to reposition between volleys. The OG-9 homing spider droids served as walking artillery platforms, firing sustained laser beams that could sweep through infantry formations or concentrate on single targets with armor-penetrating intensity. Clone troopers facing these weapons for the first time discovered that their training hadn't fully prepared them for this. How could it? Nobody had fought a war like this in 1,000 years. But here's where it gets really interesting. Above the desert, in the orange skies of Geonosis, a different kind of Separatist asset entered the fight: manned starfighters. Crewed by skilled organic pilots, the Geonosians fielded their Nantex-class territorial defense starfighters against the Republic invasion force. These craft had been designed specifically around Geonosian physiology. A cockpit orb suspended between swept-forward wings, providing exceptional atmospheric maneuverability. Geonosian pilots possessed compound eyes, capable of tracking multiple targets simultaneously, and their species had been bred for aerial combat across generations. This wasn't a droid swarm. This was skilled predators hunting in their home skies. They darted through Republic formations, exploiting gaps in fighter coverage to strafe the gunships packed with clone reinforcements. Every gunship destroyed meant dozens of soldiers who never reached the ground. Dozens of clones with names and numbers and squad mates who'd trained alongside them, gone in a fireball because a Geonosian ace lined up the shot. The Republic won Geonosis through weight of numbers. The clone army had been engineered for rapid deployment. Jedi generals possessed force-enhanced tactical awareness. They overwhelmed the position. But the strategic analysis afterward told a different story. The Separatist vehicles had outperformed the droid infantry dramatically. B-1 battle droids fell in waves to clone blaster fire and Jedi lightsabers. Easy visual confirmation of Republic success. The vehicles required concentrated effort to destroy, inflicted disproportionate casualties, and often survived engagements that annihilated the infantry they supported. The droids were dying by the thousands. The tanks kept fighting. This pattern repeated throughout the war. 3 years of conflict across thousands of star systems, and again, the story stayed the same. The Battle of Christophsis. Separatist General Worm Loathsome deployed his forces in coordinated combined arms formations, AAT columns, as the hammer cracking Republic defensive positions, battle droid infantry as the anvil preventing retreat. The tanks advanced in disciplined formations, heavy cannons suppressing clone positions, while secondary weapons swept through exposed troopers. Republic forces under Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi found themselves pinned and outgunned. Saved only by unconventional tactics and Jedi-grade improvisation, They held Christophsis by a narrow margin. But the cost? Significant clone casualties that a purely droid-based opposition couldn't have inflicted. The liberation of Ryloth. CIS forces had integrated AAT tanks into the capital city of Lesu's defenses, positioning them to cover every approach with overlapping fields of fire. A direct assault would have been suicidal for clone infantry. It took Mace Windu, Obi-Wan Kenobi, ATTE walkers, lightning infantry raids, and Jedi-led special operations to break the defensive network. That's what the AATs did. They transformed garrisons of relatively weak battle droids into fortresses that required Jedi intervention to crack. Meanwhile, in space, things were arguably even more terrifying. The Providence-class carrier-slash-destroyer formed the core of Separatist naval forces. 1,088 meters in length, smaller than the Republic's 1,137-meter Venator-class Star Destroyer, sure. But the Providence compensated with robust construction and exceptional hangar capacity. A single Providence could deploy over 200 Vulture droid starfighters, dozens of Hyena-class bombers, multiple landing craft. One ship could project power across an entire planetary system while maintaining defensive fighter screens. This wasn't just a warship, it was a mobile military base. Admiral Trench, a harsh strategic genius who commanded Separatist naval forces in multiple theaters, demonstrated what these vessels could do in capable hands. During operations at Christophsis, Trench used his flagship's carrier capacity to establish local space superiority. Fighter waves that overwhelmed Republic formations, main batteries targeting supply convoys. He forced the Republic to commit Jedi generals and irreplaceable stealth ships to what should have been routine supply operations. Trench understood something important. His Providence-class vessels couldn't win slugging matches against Venator battle groups supported by Jedi commanders. He didn't need to. He needed to delay, to attrit, to bleed Republic forces until strategic objectives became untenable. And then there was Grievous. General Grievous personified the Separatist capacity for organic military leadership. Not a droid, a rebuilt Kaleesh warlord. His brain, eyes, and vital organs encased in a duranium chassis, granting superhuman speed and reflexes while retaining organic tactical creativity. He flew a customized Belbulab 22 starfighter called the Soulless One. The Belbulab 22 represented the pinnacle of Separatist manned starfighter design. Triple laser cannons, concussion missiles, armored frame capable of surviving multiple enemy hits. Grievous's custom version enhanced these specs further with improved engines, reinforced armor, and a hyperdrive system allowing independent long-range operations. Republic intelligence classified engagements with Grievous as Priority 1 threats. Jedi pilots received specific warnings. Facing him in a dogfight without significant numerical advantage was effectively suicidal. The Soulless One. Not a squadron of Vulture droids, a single manned fighter with an organic pilot. That's what scared the Jedi. Which brings us to the climax, the moment that proved everything we've been talking about. 19 BBY, the assault on Coruscant. A direct Separatist attack on the Republic capital, the seat of the Galactic Senate, the planet housing the Jedi Temple itself. Grievous commanded a massive fleet that jumped into the Coruscant system, catching Republic defenders by surprise and immediately threatening everything the Republic stood for. This was, of course, secretly authorized by Palpatine through his Sidious identity, using it as the mechanism to position Anakin Skywalker for his final fall. But the pilots dying in that battle didn't know that. The Battle of Coruscant represented the peak demonstration of Separatist capital ship warfare. Providence-class destroyers formed the core of Grievous's assault fleet, their angular hulls distinct among the chaos as they exchanged devastating broadsides with Republic Venators. The flagship, the Invisible Hand, served as the operations command center. Enhanced shields, redundant communication arrays, the cyborg general coordinating fleet movements while personally overseeing Palpatine's imprisonment aboard. And if you saw Revenge of the Sith in theaters, if you were there in 2005 when that opening sequence began, you remember the scale. You remember your jaw dropping. Separatist and Republic capital ships exchanging fire at ranges where individual fighters appeared as insects against warship hulls. Providence destroyers vomiting streams of Vulture droid starfighters that swarmed Republic formations. Hyena bombers making attack runs on Venator hangars, trying to destroy Republic fighters before they could launch. Point defense batteries filling the void with coherent light. This wasn't a droid army marching across a field. This was a war machine that could threaten the heart of galactic civilization. The Republic ultimately repelled the assault, but the margin of victory was narrow enough to underscore just how credibly Separatist vehicle forces had challenged Republic military supremacy. Entire Republic fleets committed to breaking the attack, suffering casualties comparable to Separatist losses, despite defending their own capital system. The Providence-class destroyers had demonstrated they could contest space against Venator battle groups on roughly equal terms. Only the intervention of Jedi commanders, specifically Anakin and Obi-Wan's mission to rescue Palpatine and kill Dooku, shifted momentum decisively toward Republic victory. The invisible hand itself survived long into the engagement, despite catastrophic damage. When Skywalker and Kenobi finally reached Palpatine aboard the vessel, they found a ship that had lost multiple sections to weapons impacts, but retained propulsion, life support, and internal defenses. Grievous escaped via the Soulless One as the ship began its death spiral, leaving Skywalker to pilot the disintegrating Hulk to a controlled crash landing. That's how much punishment the Providence design could absorb. Not a droid transport, a capital ship that took everything the Republic could throw at it and kept fighting. So here's the question we've been building toward. Why? Why invest so heavily in vehicles when you've got functionally unlimited battle droids? Because Palpatine understood something that fans sometimes miss. The droids were never supposed to win. They were supposed to threaten, to pressure the Republic into perpetual emergency, to justify the accumulation of executive power in the Chancellor's hands. Sidious orchestrated both sides of the conflict, using Dooku to build the Separatist war machine while ensuring the Republic would possess the clone army necessary to fight it. The vehicles represented enormous industrial investment coordinated through Sidious's hidden hand. The AATs, the Providence-class destroyers, the manned starfighters. The Sith Lord required a Separatist military powerful enough to sustain a prolonged war. Droids provided numbers. Vehicles provided capability. An army of B-1 battle droids alone? The Jedi would have cleaned that up in months. But an army backed by tank columns that could crack open defensive lines, capital ships that could contest space with Republic fleets, starfighters piloted by skilled organics who could match Jedi pilots in the void? That was a war that could last years. And it did. 3 years of galaxy-spanning conflict, millions of clones dead, Jedi scattered across 1,000 battlefronts, emergency powers accumulating, the stage set for Order 66 and the fall of the Republic. All because the vehicles were good enough to make it credible. So let me ask you again, which battle droid variant is your favorite? Or did you just realize it was never about the droids at all? Those tanks rolling into Theed, the Providence destroyers splitting apart during the Battle of Coruscant, Grievous's Soulless One screaming through Republic formations, the Nantex fighters diving on clone gunships. That's what made you gasp as a kid. That's what stuck with you. The B-1s were just the opening act. The vehicles were the show. Next time you rewatch the prequels, pay attention to what you're actually looking at during the battles. Notice when your pulse quickens. Notice when you lean forward. It won't be when another wave of battle droids gets mowed down. It'll be when the tanks start moving. Subscribe for more stories like this.